It's 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. You just finished watching a 2-hour podcast by a Stanford neuroscientist. You feel brilliant. Your brain is buzzing with dopamine and new ideas about dopamine pathways. You genuinely believe you have learned something profound that will change your life tomorrow. But if I walked up to you the next morning and offered you $1,000 in cash, to clearly explain what you actually learned without using any vague buzzwords, you would probably stutter, mumble something about receptors, and fail completely. This is the illusion of competence, and it is the biggest, most dangerous trap of the internet age. We have confused the feeling of consuming information with the actual act of acquiring knowledge. There is a very specific, deeply biological reason why you can binge educational videos all day but still feel like you're stuck in neutral. And I'm going to show you exactly how to fix that broken learning habit. But first, you need to understand the brutal, unforgiving difference between curiosity and expertise. Let me tell you about a fascinating study done in the 1970s involving chess players. Researchers took absolute beginners and seasoned grandmasters and showed them a chessboard mid-game. They looked at the board for exactly 5 seconds and then it was hidden. When asked to recreate the board from memory, the grandmasters placed every single piece perfectly. The beginners failed miserably. You might think, well, obviously, grandmasters just have genetically better memories. But here's the twist that completely contradicts everything you've been told about memory. When the researchers placed the chess pieces randomly on the board in positions that could never happen in a real game, the grandmasters performed exactly as poorly as the absolute beginners. Their supposed superhuman memory vanished in an instant. Why? Because expertise isn't about storing raw, isolated data. It's about recognizing familiar patterns. When you mindlessly consume podcasts, books, or documentaries without a system, you are staring at random pieces on a board. You feel a burst of curiosity. Your brain says, "Oh, that's interesting," and then immediately flushes it down the drain. This is passive learning. It is the mental equivalent of eating junk food. It tastes great in the moment. It gives you a dopamine spike, but it leaves you starved for actual competence. So, how do we fix this? How do we stop being professional consumers and start becoming actual experts? There is a framework that forces your brain to build permanent patterns instead of temporary memories. I call it the friction filter, and it relies on one very uncomfortable truth. Learning is not supposed to feel smooth. If it feels completely smooth and effortless, you aren't learning. You're just watching entertainment disguised as education. Real learning requires friction. It requires the painful, frustrating realization that you don't actually get it yet. Step 1 of the friction filter is what I call the 10-year-old test. The very second you finish an article or video, close it completely. Do not leave it open in a tab. Now, open a blank document. Grab a piece of paper and try to explain what you just learned as if you are talking to a 10-year-old. No jargon, no complicated words. No relying on the author's elegant phrasing, just simple, brutal clarity. The first time you do this, something terrifying will happen. You will freeze. Your mind will go entirely blank. You'll realize that the beautiful, eloquent argument you thought you deeply understood was actually just a mirage. This freeze is the friction. It is the exact moment your brain is trying to build a pattern and realizing it's missing crucial pieces. Do not go back to the source yet. Let it hurt. Let yourself struggle to find the words. Only after you've forced yourself to hit a wall do you go back to the source to find the specific missing piece you need. Now, forget everything I just said. Well, don't actually forget it, but recognize that the 10-year-old test is only the absolute beginning, because explaining it once isn't enough to survive the brain's aggressive deletion cycle. Your brain is highly efficient. If it doesn't think you are actively going to use information, it throws it away to save energy. So you have to trick your brain into believing this information is a matter of life or death for your survival. This brings us to step 2, the anchor project. Never learn something just for the sake of learning it. Always have a specific project you are actively trying to solve. If you read a book about psychology, don't just mindlessly highlight sentences in yellow. Ask yourself, how does chapter to specifically explain why my last relationship failed? Or how can I use this exact negotiation tactic on my manager tomorrow at 2 p.m.? When information anchors to a real-world problem you are currently facing, it becomes sticky. It stops being an abstract, theoretical concept and starts becoming a functional, everyday tool. This is exactly how you build a lattice of knowledge. Every new piece of information hooks onto something you already deeply care about. Let me give you a hyper-specific example to make this concrete. Let's say you want to learn how to code. The amateur buys a 40-hour masterclass, watches it straight through on double speed, and feels like a hacker. Then they open a blank code editor and immediately realize they don't even know how to write the very first line. The expert does the exact opposite. They decide, I want to build a script that automatically texts my mom happy birthday. They don't know how to do it. They don't know the syntax. They don't know the libraries or the language. So they Google the exact, hyper-specific problem they are stuck on at that exact moment. They hit a wall. They feel the intense friction. They find the answer and they apply it immediately to their project. That one line of code, they will never, ever forget it, because it wasn't just random data. It was the crucial key to a door they were actively trying to kick open. If you do this consistently, the compounding effect over time is absolutely terrifying. In 1 year, the person watching endless tutorials will have a vague, fuzzy understanding of 100 different topics. You, on the other hand, will have a crystal clear, razor-sharp mastery of 5. And let me assure you, in the real world, depth always beats breadth. No one pays for a guy who kind of knows how the engine works from watching a YouTube video. They pay the guy who has taken it apart and put it back together so many times he can literally do it in his sleep. Stop confusing the cheap thrill of curiosity with the hard, ugly, frustrating work of building actual expertise. The next time you finish a podcast or an article, do not immediately click on the next one in your feed. Sit in the silence, pull out a blank piece of paper, and see what you actually kept. Because if you cannot explain it simply, you do not know it. And if you do not know it, you are just wasting your time. Anyway, I'm collecting donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video.